What if I told you a YouTuber with just 420,000 subscribers is crushing creators with over 2 million subscribers, pulling in a staggering 19 million views in just 30 days? That's more than double what Arbar and Preach managed in the same period. How is this even possible? Well, it's not just about numbers. It's about controversy, bold statements, and breaking the rules online. He's making waves, sparking outrage, and forcing conversations, all while the so-called big creators are left behind. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly how one small channel is dominating the game, and why subscriber count might not matter as much as you think. A few days ago, Myron became embroiled in a heated clash with fellow content creators Arbar and Preach, and the exchange was nothing short of dramatic. During this confrontation, he made several eyebrow-raising claims that immediately caught the attention of viewers and sparked discussions across social media platforms. The central point Myron was attempting to convey was striking. Despite operating a significantly smaller channel, with roughly 420,000 subscribers compared to Arbar and Preach's impressive 2.26 million, he was actually generating a far higher volume of views. This is a remarkable claim, particularly in an online environment where subscriber count is often treated as the primary indicator of influence or success. To put things into perspective, in the last 30 days alone, Myron's channel accumulated an astonishing 19 million views, a figure that dwarfs the 7.6 million views pulled in by Arbar and Preach during the same period. These numbers challenge the common assumption that a larger subscriber base automatically guarantees greater engagement, and they highlight how different strategies can produce vastly different outcomes on digital platforms. From my experience navigating the YouTube ecosystem, creators who adopt what is often referred to as the shock jock persona have a distinct advantage when it comes to generating attention. These are the creators who thrive on controversy, provocative statements, and polarizing opinions, and they tend to attract viewers who are drawn to sensational content. On average, such creators can secure a steady stream of views on a daily basis, but there's an important nuance to this. The most successful ones complement their online activity with an active offline presence. By offline presence, I'm referring to the tangible, real-world actions that enhance a creator's visibility beyond the screen. This could include attending live events, participating in debates on college campuses, collaborating with other creators in person, or engaging directly with audiences in public settings. Each of these interactions not only increases recognition in the real world but also generates content that can be repurposed for online consumption, creating a cyclical feedback loop that boosts both reach and engagement. In Myron's case, his strategic use of offline presence has clearly contributed to his rapid growth in viewership. By physically showing up at events, debating individuals in public spaces, and networking with other creators, he establishes a form of credibility and visibility that purely online creators might struggle to achieve. Each in-person interaction becomes material for his videos, creating content that is inherently dynamic and authentic. This approach also taps into the psychological aspect of audience engagement. Viewers are drawn to creators who are active in real-world communities, as it signals that the creator's influence extends beyond the digital screen and into tangible spaces. In essence, offline presence amplifies online performance by generating unique content and demonstrating a form of social proof that resonates with viewers. For creators who are polarizing or abrasive, traditional content creation skills, such as polished editing, storytelling, or high production value, often take a back seat. In many cases, controversy alone is sufficient to drive massive viewership. The more a creator challenges social norms, pushes boundaries, or engages in provocative behavior, the more attention they attract. In digital media, this phenomenon is often referred to as the outrage loop, where controversy generates discussion, discussion drives clicks, and clicks increase visibility. Myron has mastered this loop to a significant degree. By positioning himself as a confrontational figure who isn't afraid to make bold, and sometimes offensive, statements, he consistently draws viewers who are either supportive or curious, and even those who disapprove contribute to engagement through comments, shares, and debates. Breaking the rules is another effective strategy that Myron employs. While many creators adhere strictly to platform guidelines or social norms, those willing to test limits often reap higher engagement metrics. This isn't to suggest reckless behavior, but rather a calculated approach to pushing boundaries just enough to generate interest without triggering permanent bans or removals. By flirting with controversy, creators like Myron create a sense of unpredictability that keeps audiences returning to see what will happen next. In a crowded digital landscape, where countless channels compete for attention, this ability to stand out through bold, rule-challenging content is a significant advantage. It's also worth noting the psychological effect of polarizing content on viewers. Humans are naturally drawn to conflict, debate, and opinionated personalities. When a creator consistently expresses strong viewpoints or challenges widely held beliefs, it sparks conversations, encourages debates in comment sections, and even motivates viewers to share the content with friends or on social media platforms. In this way, controversy serves as a catalyst for organic growth, as each interaction amplifies the reach of the creator's content. Myron's strategy leveraged this dynamic effectively. By creating material that provokes, challenges, and occasionally offends, he ensures that his content remains relevant and widely circulated, regardless of subscriber size. Moreover, the interplay between Myron's smaller subscriber base and higher view count underscores a critical insight about digital content. Influence is not solely determined by the number of followers but by how engaged those followers are and how content circulates beyond the immediate audience. While Arbar and Preach maintain impressive subscriber totals, their content may not provoke the same level of immediate, reaction-driven engagement that Myron's videos consistently elicit. This illustrates a broader principle in online media. Strategic positioning, content style, and audience psychology often outweigh raw numbers when it comes to generating visibility and impact. In summary, Myron's recent clash with Arbar and Preach sheds light on an important dynamic in contemporary digital media. Despite a smaller channel, his combination of provocative content, strategic offline presence, and calculated rule-breaking has allowed him to generate disproportionately high views. His success illustrates the power of controversy, the value of real-world interactions in amplifying online performance, and the ways in which polarizing content can dominate attention in a crowded digital landscape. For creators, these observations provide valuable lessons. Engagement is as much about strategy, psychology, and positioning as it is about subscriber counts, and the ability to challenge norms can create a distinct advantage in the modern content ecosystem. On platforms like Rumble, Myron has carved out a niche for himself by making deliberately provocative and often outrageous statements about various groups, a strategy that consistently generates outrage and drives engagement. This approach is central to his online persona. By making bold, inflammatory claims, he attracts viewers who are curious, supportive, or even opposed to his ideas, creating a feedback loop that amplifies his visibility. Over time, Myron has developed a reputation as someone who doesn't shy away from controversial or offensive commentary, and his track record shows that he knows precisely which topics will provoke strong reactions from audiences. In the past, he has targeted Black and Jewish communities, making statements designed to challenge norms, provoke debate, and, quite frankly, anger people. These actions have earned him notoriety and attention, positioning him as a polarizing figure whose content thrives on confrontation and divisiveness. More recently, Myron has shifted his focus toward the Puerto Rican community, a move that has drawn considerable attention and criticism. In his videos, he has made sweeping generalizations, labeling Puerto Ricans as lazy and even comparing them to the blacks of the Hispanic community. This type of rhetoric is inflammatory and highly reductive, reducing an entire diverse population to harmful stereotypes. Beyond Puerto Ricans, he has also directed similar commentary toward Dominicans and, to a lesser extent, Cubans, criticizing their language, cultural practices, and lifestyles. By highlighting perceived deficiencies or differences, Myron crafts a narrative that paints these communities in a negative light, framing them as inherently flawed or problematic. This pattern of speech is not only provocative but also clearly falls into the category of hate speech, as it unfairly generalizes entire groups based on preconceived notions or biases rather than evidence or nuance. Since at least February, Myron has maintained this pattern, repeatedly insulting Puerto Ricans and Dominicans in ways that are overtly demeaning. He has called members of these communities dumb or lazy, remarks that reinforce damaging stereotypes and contribute to a climate of prejudice. These comments are particularly concerning because they extend beyond casual critique and enter the territory of dehumanization. By labeling entire groups with negative traits, Myron not only misrepresents these communities but also perpetuates harmful societal narratives that can influence public perception and social interactions. The consistency of these remarks over months demonstrates that this is not an isolated incident, but rather a deliberate strategy embedded in his content. It's unsurprising, then, that his statements have led to backlash from the communities he targets. Members of the Puerto Rican community, in particular, have responded with criticism, anger, and even threats, reflecting the deep offense and harm caused by such generalized and derogatory portrayals. This reaction underscores the social and emotional impact of hate speech, showing that Myron's commentary does not exist in a vacuum but affects real people who experience the consequences of public vilification. The online amplification of his statements further complicates matters, as social media and video sharing platforms allow these offensive remarks to reach audiences far beyond the immediate community, magnifying their potential impact and the intensity of reactions they provoke. Contextualizing this further, Myron Gaines resides in Miami-Dade County, a region with significant populations of Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and Cubans. His proximity to these communities adds another layer of concern. The people he disparages are not abstract or distant. They live in the same geographic and social space as him. Every public appearance, whether at clubs, college events, or other gatherings, carries the weight of these prejudiced views. By consistently portraying these communities negatively, he reinforces the perception that he holds them in contempt, while simultaneously framing them as dependent on welfare programs or otherwise deficient. This dual narrative, mocking cultural identity while attributing social challenges to laziness, serves to further entrench stereotypes and fuels division between groups. Moreover, Myron's approach highlights a broader trend in online content creation, leveraging outrage and conflict for attention. By making offensive and provocative statements, he ensures that his content is widely shared, discussed, and dissected, whether positively or negatively. This strategy works because it taps into fundamental human psychology. Controversy attracts curiosity, debate, and emotional reactions, which in turn drives engagement metrics like views, comments, and shares. While other creators might focus on educational, entertaining, or skill-based content, Myron's primary method for growth and visibility relies on creating tension and generating emotional responses, often at the expense of truth, nuance, and respect for the communities he discusses. The consequences of this approach are multifaceted. On one hand, it brings attention and visibility, increasing his online reach and engagement numbers. On the other, it fosters a climate of hostility and resentment, both online and offline, and subjects him to potential social and legal repercussions. By disparaging Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and Cubans repeatedly, he risks alienating audiences, inciting backlash, and becoming a focal point for criticism that can escalate beyond digital spaces into real-world confrontations. The combination of deliberate provocation, geographic proximity, and high visibility makes his content uniquely capable of stirring strong reactions, illustrating the power and the danger of hate-driven engagement in the digital age. In summary, Myron's activity on platforms like Rumble exemplifies how deliberate provocation and generalizations can be used as tools for engagement and visibility, but at a significant cost. His repeated targeting of Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and Cubans through offensive stereotypes and demeaning remarks has earned him notoriety, backlash, and controversy, reflecting both the effectiveness and the ethical consequences of his approach. While this strategy can drive views and attention, it also underscores the responsibility that comes with influence. Words have real-world impact, and content that generalizes or disparages entire communities carries tangible social consequences. In the digital landscape, where engagement metrics often reward outrage, Myron's example serves as both a cautionary tale and a case study in the complex interplay between visibility, controversy, and ethical responsibility. There's nothing inherently wrong with being critical or expressing opinions about different communities, but the way Myron frames his statements transforms ordinary critique into something that feels morally accusatory and deeply offensive. Instead of offering nuanced observations or engaging in thoughtful commentary, he exaggerates and generalizes, creating sweeping narratives that are factually inaccurate and harmful. For instance, he implies that all Puerto Ricans and Dominicans are dependent on welfare programs, a claim that is simply untrue. By framing these communities as lazy or reliant on government assistance, he perpetuates damaging stereotypes that contribute to social stigmas and reinforce prejudiced assumptions. Alongside this, he disparages the way these communities speak Spanish, claiming that their language is unintelligible. This linguistic critique is not merely observational. It carries a subtle yet persistent undertone of anti-Black sentiment, suggesting that the way their Spanish sounds is somehow inferior, linking language with social worth in a manner that is both dismissive and derogatory. For individuals from these communities, especially those at the intersections of these identities, such as Afro-Latino Puerto Ricans or Dominicans, Myron's statements are deeply personal and alienating. By labeling entire groups as lazy and mocking their language, he effectively dehumanizes his audience, reducing complex cultures and identities to a handful of negative traits. This type of rhetoric does not merely exist in a vacuum. It is amplified by the platforms on which he posts, allowing his messages to reach wide audiences who may absorb, repeat, or even act on these false generalizations. For viewers who are part of these communities, the experience can be particularly jarring and hurtful, as it frames their identities as the subject of ridicule and social judgment. When individuals have attempted to challenge Myron directly, inviting him to places like New Jersey or New York City to confront his remarks, his responses have been dismissive and sarcastic. Rather than engaging in any form of meaningful dialogue, he mocks the neighborhoods of those challenging him and implies that their priorities should be on basic survival rather than addressing his provocations. This tactic both deflects responsibility and reinforces his persona as untouchable and combative. At the same time, he ridicules cultural expressions, such as Puerto Rican music, and sarcastically comments on issues like food insecurity, further highlighting his penchant for minimizing the lived experiences of the communities he criticizes. By doing so, he positions himself as the center of attention, turning controversy into personal branding and reinforcing the confrontational nature of his content. Even casual comments, such as his warning for people to be careful while you walk, exemplify the provocative, antagonistic approach he consistently employs. These statements are carefully designed to elicit reactions, incite anger, and provoke debates among those he targets. It is this deliberate and calculated approach to creating content that ensures engagement while simultaneously inflaming the very communities he criticizes. Rather than fostering understanding or constructive dialogue, Myron's commentary thrives on conflict, controversy, and the emotional responses of viewers, transforming criticism into a spectacle meant to provoke, entertain, and dominate attention. Ultimately, while critique itself is not problematic, the manner in which Myron delivers it crosses into territory that is inflammatory, demeaning, and harmful. His exaggerations, stereotyping, and antagonistic interactions with audiences demonstrate a deliberate strategy of provocation, one that leverages offense and controversy for attention and engagement. The consequences of this approach extend beyond online disputes. They shape public perception, reinforce harmful stereotypes, and perpetuate divisiveness within the communities he targets, making it clear that the content he produces is as confrontational as it is controversial. I don't mean to be harsh, but we all remember the untimely passing of Charlie Kirk, who was no older than 32. In my view, Kirk was far less extreme than Myron ever has been. Could Kirk be considered hateful? Sure, but Myron? He's downright diabolical. And here's the reality: Myron isn't Charlie Kirk. Being black and part of the diaspora, if something were to happen to him, people might simply not care. That's a pattern I've noticed with certain YouTubers and content creators. They often rely on controversy instead of building real skill or substance in their content. There's nothing wrong with a controversial take now and then, but if your content consistently dehumanizes entire communities, Cubans, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, blacks, and more, then it's shallow and exploitative. Living in Miami, he's not far from the communities he insults, so the risks of crossing a line are real. When your content is purely designed to provoke and you measure success only by subscriber counts, it's ultimately fragile. One misstep, and you could face consequences you're not prepared for. This pattern is common: jumping into petty beefs, boasting about numbers, and ignoring the substance that would actually earn respect. Look at creators like Abba and Preach. They are focused on building meaningful content rather than chasing clicks with controversy. Unlike some creators who chase controversy for every video, others focus on what truly serves their audience. They stay authentic to their viewers, not just doing whatever feels impulsive or indulging in endless streams of hate speech online. It's about creating content that has meaning and purpose, rather than going on 20-hour rants for clout. That's the difference between building a lasting presence and burning out in chaos.